So, Dad, we're in front of, I know the original house isn't here, but we're in front of the property where Aunt Nola, your oldest sister, was born.
Yes, in 1921. She was born here in the home of my grandpa, John Mann and Emma Mann. And the buildings, there aren't any original buildings left here at all. But this farm, this is the west side of it, and a lot of this land to the west belongs to this farm.
You're pointing east, I think.
Or east,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
right.
I'm sorry. East. Alan looked it up back on the records on Monona County, and he knows exactly the outline of that farm back in those days. He'd be a good one to talk to about it.
Well, I got an 1875 map of Monona County that shows John T. Mann's property.
All right. Okay. Then it would show the boundaries of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on down to where we think John T's father, Richard Montgomery Mann, settled. Where we think that property is.
Along here somewhere.
Best guess, right?
It'd be on this road. I really don't know. To be honest with you.
Well, wasn't your dad born on this road somewhere?
Yes. Well, my dad was born here too.
On the same.
Right here on this farmstead. Right here.
Right here, same place. No, yeah,
yeah.
Right. John and Emma.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is where your dad was born. Wasn't in no hospitals back in them days, was it?
No.
So here's my dad and I again. So Dad, right off my left shoulder here, on the other side of the road is nothing but a cornfield. But this is where there used to be buildings, and my Aunt Norma was born. Correct?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about this place when you guys moved here. And
well, this is called the Silsby place, I think.
What's it called?
Silsby, I think. But sometimes I get that wrong. Ronnie will correct us. We can make a correction if we have to. But this is where Norma was born.
Right out here in this cornfield.
Yeah, in 1923.
And you said, I'm just going to pan up here, you might not be able to see it, but right up the hill here, cluster of trees is...
It's right next to the Negro Cemetery in Monona County.
Hello, this is my father, approaching 85 years old, Duane Mann. It's Saturday, December the 13th, 2014, and we are at the home where, the place where my Uncle Lorne, my dad's older brother, was born. So, Dad, tell me a little bit about this place.
This is the Oscar Lewis place. And we moved here. Lorne was born here in 1925. And we must have lived here a couple of years anyhow, because Viola was born in 27 and she was born in a different place. And the house used to sit right here, and then there were a lot of buildings down below down here. It's pretty rugged. The road used to go on through. There was a bridge here when I was a kid. We used to Glenn Oliver put hay up down over that hill, and I used to help pull the hay up with a John Deere tractor hooked to the tongue of the hay rack, with the team still hooked, because it's really steep. And so but this road's been closed, and these buildings have been gone for probably 30 years.
Very good. Thanks, Dad. We're in front of the 40, so tell me a little bit about this place.
This is the 40. Dad bought this sometime in the early 20s. Because after they lived out, Lorne was born, we moved over here. Viola was born here in 1927. So they had to be here in 27. And then come along the Depression in 29. Dad lost this. And we had to move off of this. And that's when we moved to the old town of Moorhead, and I was born.
So, Dad, here we're just a bit north of the old 40.
Yeah,
quarter mile. At the old shear place, and I'm taking a picture of this brick wall that's in the terrain here, and you said this is in the same picture that old Gyp and Queen
were in.
picture was in, right?
Hooked to the wagon, yeah. Yeah,
Well, what would...
And then right above it, you could see, in that picture, you could see the wood pile and the barns and buildings that were setting up in here. And our mailbox used to be right back here on the corner. And I don't know who took that picture, but Dad apparently had stopped here, and somebody took it because we didn't have a camera at that time. And I've seen that picture several times, and Viola had never seen it, she said, so I don't know where it came from. But it was just a little tiny thing, wasn't it?
I can't... yeah, it was just a little tiny picture.
And you blew it up.
Yeah. Well, good afternoon. I'm here with my father, Duane Mann. It's Father's Day, 2015. That house right behind me, just off his left shoulder, not the house he was born in, but the site that house is sitting on, where my dad was born on February 8th, 1931.
Right.
Hadn't it been for my great-grandmother nursing this little sucker with goat's milk, I wouldn't be here doing this video today. Isn't that right, Dad?
That's the truth, yep.
So happy Father's Day.
Yep.
Love you bunches.
Love you. Bye.
So tell me a little about that house behind you.
Well, the house that's in there now used to be a schoolhouse that was east of Pisgah, about 6-7 miles. I went to 8th grade in that building at a country school. My youngest sister, Shirley, went to school there 3 years in that schoolhouse. And I don't remember this fellow's name, but he moved that schoolhouse over here and then remodeled it, put it on this lot, remodeled it, made it into a home. Yeah. So
we're in the old town of Moorhead.
We're in the old town of Moorhead, yes.
Yep.
1867
is when it was founded?
I think so.
1867.
The sign's up there around the corner.
Well, if I just bend a little bit to my left here, for you folks there, this house that's right there, yeah, right there, is where my great-grandmother Annie Perrin lived and was living when my daddy was born here in this house, or at least where the house used to sit there.
Yep.
And
my mother
this direction, she walked way up that road for I don't know how many miles to get that goat's milk and brought it back. Yep. And stuck it in a bottle and stuck the bottle in my daddy's mouth.
I was allergic to my mother's milk. I was allergic to cow's milk. And the doctor had told Dad that he'd done everything he could. And my mother had pneumonia and was really ill. And so my grandmother, after they said I wasn't going to live, came across the street, got me, took me back to her house, told my Aunt Lily to watch me. She took a half-gallon syrup can and walked up
up that road?
Yep, the Jordan there. And at some place, somebody owned goats, and she came home with goat's milk. Fed me the goat's milk. I didn't throw up any of it. Then it looked like gray concrete, and then it started turning pink little by little.
Of course, that story was handed down to you because you probably had no clue what it looked like at that time when you were...
Dad told me about that,
gotcha. Yeah. Kind of like a runt pig story, right? You're a runt pig and have to put him out of his misery.
I was a little more than a runt because I was 26 inches long.
Oh, wow.
When I was born. I weighed 10 pounds.
Well, you should have been all right.
Well, I was allergic to, had an allergy to my mother's milk and cow's milk. Couldn't keep nothing down. Just threw it up.
I guess I'm kind of glad you made it. So, happy Father's Day, Dad.
Well, I got 5 other ones that's happy, too.
Yeah, we'll talk to them later.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye. I was born there in the old town of Moorhead, and then this place was empty and vacant. They couldn't market it, the banker, so forth. So the banker told Dad to take his kids and go back here and keep the house up and stay here till he could get his feet on the ground. We came back here, and Shirley was born here too, also.
Okay.
And the house used to set right where that pickup's sitting.
You pan over there.
And it faced north.
So face the direction the pickup is facing.
The front of the house faced south.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the barn set back behind its garage, and the chicken house. I don't know whether that's still there or not. I don't think so.
Up behind the current house?
I was up there to the left by that tree
No.
up there in the corner. That's still there. That was there when we were here.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so here we are at the place where my uncle Ronnie was born, Dad, right?
Right.
Tell
And
me.
this would have been in 42. It was born here. This was called the Vredenburg place.
How do you spell Vredenburg?
VREDENBURG.
URG, not ERG, right? I think you're right. It's URG.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just Ronnie was born here, right?
Yes.
And this was Grandpa farming land here, or was he in between
Actually,
farms?
he worked for Roy Vredenburg, who lived over the hill, and this was all Roy's land from here on over the hill and so forth. And he worked for him as a hired man, planted corn, cultivated corn, picked corn, built hog houses, fixed fence, and Roy let Dad have this piece of ground. This creek runs down through here, and what lays to the northwest of that, up here in this corner, he let Dad have for pasture for his cows and these horses. And it wasn't enough to sustain them, because we had some sheep when we lived here also. I loved this place, but there was a portion of this place that was hell. And that was that we had to let the cows out, and we had to graze them up and down this road for grass. And you had to be out here with them, because they'd get spread out or get lost, you know.
So you had to do that because your pasture.
By the hours. You'd be out here 6 hours, 7 hours, watching cows eat grass on here.
Was that because the pasture just wasn't yielding enough?
It wasn't big enough for he'd had like 7, 8 cows here, you know, and that was a good cream check. And we had at least one team, and maybe I think one time we had 2 teams here, and we had a bunch of sheep. The sheep he fenced and let them. They fed down along the creek. Of course, they'd eat tree leaves and everything else. But I hated it. And then we had to pump water by hand here, Shirley and I, with a pump for all those cattle and everything. And that took forever. So you talk about summers of work. It was really work. And old Roy Vredenburg, because I always look back more now than I ever did, but was a soft-hearted guy. I know that he was concerned about that, because we came home one night in the school bus stopped here and get out, and there was some guys down here digging some deals and putting some concrete blocks in. And 4 or 5 days later, when we come home from school, they had a windmill up there, and he put a windmill in here to pump that water
For your dad.
for Shirley and I.
For Shirley.
Take that off our backs. And
you don't see that kind of generosity these days, do you?
no.
Right?
Mm-mm.
Taking care of your neighbor.
No way. No, and it didn't hurt us. It's just that you get awful weary and tired of it, you know. Yeah. I hated that, spending all that time out there with those cows. Just so boring, you know. Jeez.
Yeah, but looking back, you wouldn't mind spending another 6 hours with them, would you?
No, it'd be different. That barn, when we lived here, that barn was in pretty good shape. And if you didn't have those barn doors hooked up, Viola would just raise Cain. You get down there, you aren't going to get to eat supper until you go down and hook those barn doors up. You know, if you left one of them loose.
Because the animals get out, or?
No, it just didn't look good.
Just didn't look good.
I used to trap rats in that corn crib. They put metal over that. There's a greenery on this one corner.
Yeah.
The rest of it had slats. They used to put traps up at the top of that and catch some big rats.
All right, Dad, let's move on to next place, all right?
Yeah.
Okay, Dad, so we're in Pisgah front of the house that my Uncle Gerald was born in, Uncle Jerry.
Jerry, yeah, he was born here in, let's see, 1943. 1943, I say 43? Just a minute, yeah.
Now
Ronnie was born in 42. He was born in 43.
So how long did you guys live here? How long did Grandma and Grandpa live
We
here?
lived here 1 year.
1 year.
Yep.
And he was between farming?
Yes.
Between farms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. So, Dad, tell me about this blue house off here to my left.
Well, it's Blue House was always known as Doc Cook's house. It was a doctor lived there, but my mother and her mother and sisters lived in that and rented that for a period of time. They lived actually in 3 places here in town, and that was one of them. And it would have been, she would have been 14, so that would have been about 1917. 18.
Okay.
That's when, in that period of time when they were writing all the letters back and forth to Johnny and Tommy, who were over in France in World War I.
So Annie was alive, but John Parent had died at this time, right? Your dad?
Yes.
Your grandpa?
Yes. Yeah. John Parent died when my mother was 5.
So about 1908. Of course, we have all that factual information at home,
Right.
but roughly 1908. Okay, that's very interesting. I often thought that you said Aunt Nola was born there, but it must have been confused.
No.
Okay,
That's the house you were thinking of.
that was the house I was thinking of.
Okay.
All right, we'll move on here. Hello, this is Brian Mann again with my father, Duane Mann. Saturday, December 13th, 2014. We're at I believe the Rogers place, correct, Dad?
Yes, this is the Rogers place.
So tell me a little bit about this place.
Well, this is the farm that my folks rented when I was in 8th grade through sophomore in high school, at least 3 years and maybe 4. And we farmed this basically with horses and a 1020 International tractor. This would have been back about 1943, 44, during the World War II. And its growth of timber and everything has grown up tremendously since I was here. In fact, that was all timbered off one time.
This big old cottonwood tree, though, in front of us, you say that
was here. That was in the lower southwest corner of the barnyard. The barn used to sit right here, the corn crib, right there, and then the well was straight back to the east, and with the hog house on further back to the east, and a chicken house back there, and then the house that back up to the north on a ledge. And it was a pretty good sized farmstead. This is where I lived when I rode the horse in the barn.
cracked your head on the rafters?
Cracked my head on the rafters in the dark and knocked me cold.
So what lesson did you learn from that?
Well, don't gallop your horse up to the barn in the dark, especially if your dad's around, because he opened the barn door and should have been closed. He had opened and left it open, and the horse just went right on in the barn.
So were any of your brothers and sisters born here?
No.
Okay.
No. But this was, Ronnie was alive here.
But just barely, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, he was, this is the place where he got lost when he was 2.5. And from this house, we hunted for him, and I found him on the other side of this hill. On this side of this hill, way down by the ditch.
With the cows, right?
No, with a dog.
With the dog?
With a dog. And he was just, and all he had on was a diaper. He's out there with his dog.
That's funny.
God, we had the whole neighborhood hunting for him.
Wasn't much of a neighborhood. I mean, there's people were like living right next door to you out here, were they?
Well, Oliver's right down here.
On the corner.
Yeah. Yeah, this cornfield here, Dad got me out of bed one night and said, horses are out. And I was sleeping in my shorts, and I didn't bother to put any clothes on at all. And I come out here and I chased these horses in this corn in the summertime, and got them in. I came in the house, I was just cut from one end to the other.
How high was the corn at that time?
Way above my head. It was running down the rows, and that corn was just cutting the living heck out of me. Mom, she took the alcohol and bathed my body with that to get it all healed up. Was kind of stupid.
All right, let's move on to another place, all right?
Okay.
You were at the 80, right?
The 80, yes. Yeah.
So tell me about this place.
Well, we moved here. This belonged to an old family by the name of Pitt. But Dad bought this 80 acres for $3,200.
He actually bought it, wasn't renting it?
Yeah, he bought this.
Was it the first place you ever bought?
No, he bought that 40 up there.
Okay.
And lost that in the latter part of the 20s in the Depression. And I have a copy of the deeds for this and the deed for the 40 up there. So I've got to give those to you.
So who was born here?
Nobody was born here.
Okay.
We moved here when I was a junior in high school, and a senior, and I graduated, and I left here. Went to work for a grocery store, and left and worked for a farmer up by Lawton in Mobile,
Northwest Iowa.
Northwest Iowa. And then that would have been in 1950. No, that would have been the summer of '49, and through the 50 up until September of the 50, and then that's when I joined the Navy on the September the 27th, 1950.
So this was the same time that classic picture was taken of your mom and dad and all you kids. Where, Ronnie and Jerry on both ends.
Yes.
Right.
Yes,
you were living here when that picture was taken.
Yes, absolutely.
Where was that picture taken at?
Taken in Sioux City at Janelli's studio.
Whose studio?
Janelli.
Janelli
Studio.
Okay. Mm-hmm. That was quite a trip to go out.
Nola and Leo had a car. Dad had a car then. We had a 36 Ford car at that time. And then I'm thinking Norman and Lee were living up there. But Leo had a car and we had a car.
Hauled everybody up there.
We bunched everybody up and we had an appointment and went up and got that taken just about a month before I went in the Navy.
That's such a classic picture. I was noticing it the other day of the symmetry of how your head and Uncle Lorne's head are in respect to Aunt Shirley and Aunt Nola behind you guys, in terms of it's pretty neat how
and the resemblance of and the kids.
Yeah,
it is a classic picture. And then we have that very same setting taken like 4 different times in our lifetimes. I have copies of those.
Yeah,
and
I don't much like the last one you guys took.
Well, the last one was awful. Dad was not too long before Dad died.
Yeah.
But Mom was wanting a family picture before I went to the Navy because she was worried I was going to get killed.
Well, as you and I talked, you worried you might catch something else.
The only way I was going to get killed is well, I shouldn't talk about it.
Get samurai'd by that?
No, that's either the samurai sword or get suffocated by some Japanese girl.
Oh, what a way to go.
I liked them.
I'm sure you did.